Hey everyone, and welcome back. First off, I just want to say congratulations. You have made it. After 9 modules diving into everything from conformity to attraction, you're here at our 10th and final topic. You are so close to that finish line. It's been a really incredible journey. And trust me, we're going to cap it off with one of the most important subjects we could possibly study. So for our final deep dive together, we're tackling something that's, well, it's incredibly complex, but it's also critically important. I mean, you see it on the news every night, it's woven all through human history, and it's a dynamic we all have to navigate in our own lives. We're going to explore aggression, what it is, where it comes from, and maybe most importantly, what the science tells us we can actually do about it. So to all of you at Los Angeles City College, a huge welcome to Module 10. I want you to think of this as a capstone. This is where we get to see how all those concepts you've mastered, things like social influence and group dynamics, all come together to help us understand this final, crucial piece of the human puzzle. Seriously, think about it. Over these last 9 modules, you've been building this fantastic toolkit. You've been learning how we think about each other, how we influence each other, and how we relate to one another. You now have a really solid foundation for understanding the intricate, sometimes messy, dance of human behavior. And now, we get to use that entire toolkit to tackle a question that has challenged thinkers for centuries. What really drives aggression? I mean, what's behind it? And maybe the most important question of all, what does the science tell us about how we can actually reduce it? So, let's dive in and start with the basics. Okay, first things first. If we're gonna study something scientifically, we need to be on the same page. We need a really precise definition. We can't just rely on that vague, I know it when I see it feeling, right? We need a clear, shared foundation to build our understanding on. So here it is. According to this module, aggression is any physical or verbal behavior that is intended to cause harm. Now the key word there, the one that changes everything, is intended. Think about it. Accidentally bumping into someone in a crowded hallway? That's not aggression. A surgeon causing pain during an operation to heal someone? Not aggression. It's that intention to harm that separates aggression from other actions. And, aggression isn't just one thing. We can break it down. There's the obvious one, physical aggression, hitting, shoving, harming someone's body. But then there's social aggression, and this can be just as damaging. This is all about hurting someone's feelings, their reputation, their relationships. Think about stuff like malicious gossip, excluding someone on purpose, or cyberbullying. It's all aggression. We also have to look at the why, the motivation behind it. Hostile aggression is that hot, impulsive kind. It just explodes from anger. Like a bar fight that starts over a spilled drink. The goal is simply to injure. But instrumental aggression? That's colder. It's more calculated. The harm is just a tool, a means to some other end. Think of a mugger who uses threats to get a wallet, or a linebacker tackling a player to stop a touchdown. Understanding both the type of harm and the motivation is absolutely crucial. Okay, so we've got a solid definition. Now we get to the really big question. Why? Why does it happen? Social psychologists have come up with 3 major frameworks to try and explain where aggression comes from. Let's explore how these big ideas build on each other. Here's the game plan. 3 big ideas we're going to walk through. First, we'll look at biological influences. What's going on inside us. Then, we'll tackle frustration as a really powerful trigger. And finally, we'll examine how aggression can be a learned behavior, something we actually pick up from the world around us. So starting with biology, there are definitely clear influences. Certain brain areas are involved, our genetics can predispose us to be more reactive, and biochemicals like alcohol and testosterone for sure play a role. But, and this is so important, while aggression is biologically influenced, it's not some pure, uncontrollable instinct. There's a great saying, biology may load the gun, but the environment often pulls the trigger. Next up, frustration. This is a classic theory, and you'll see it everywhere. The core idea is actually pretty simple. When you're blocked from achieving a goal, that's frustration, it creates a readiness to aggress. Have you ever gotten absolutely furious at a vending machine that just ate your money? That's it. That's the frustration-aggression link right there. And sometimes we even redirect that anger onto a safer, easier target. That's a process called displacement. And finally, we've got the famous social learning theory from Albert Bandura. This idea argues that we learn to be aggressive simply by watching other people. When we see aggression modeled in our families, in our culture, in the media, and especially when we see that behavior get rewarded, we learn that, hey, this is an effective way to get what I want.
So we have these big, overarching theories. But what about the specifics? What are the situational factors that can flip the switch and make aggression more likely in any given moment? What turns that dial up from a 0 to a 10?
Well, aversive experiences are a huge factor. Things like physical pain, nasty smells, or even insults can make us short-fused. And check this out, this is data from right here in our own backyard. Look at this chart from Los Angeles. Between 2010 and 2017, the number of violent crimes was consistently higher on hotter days. Heat is physically uncomfortable, and that discomfort can easily boil over into actual aggression. Now, this next finding from social psychology is, well, it's fascinating and kind of unsettling. It's called the weapons effect. Research shows that simply the presence of a weapon, like a gun just sitting on a table, untouched, can prime aggressive thoughts in our minds. It means that if a person is provoked, they're likely to react more aggressively if there's a gun nearby than if there's, say, a tennis racket. The weapon itself acts as an aggressive cue.
Of course, we can't talk about modern influences without talking about the media. But why does viewing violence actually have an effect? It's not just one thing. First, it causes physiological arousal. Your heart rate literally goes up. It also disinhibits us. It makes aggression seem more normal, more acceptable. We see it so often, our brains start to lower the barrier against it. The media gives us aggressive scripts, showing us ways to act that we might not have thought of. And finally, over time, it leads to desensitization, which just numbs our natural emotional response to seeing violence and suffering.
And things can get even more intense when people get into groups. Two powerful forces kick in. The first is diffusion of responsibility, that feeling that you're less accountable for your actions because, hey, everyone else is doing it. This gets amplified by a second force, social contagion, where emotions and behaviors can just rip through a crowd like a virus. When you combine that loss of personal responsibility with a tidal wave of shared anger, well, you get the perfect storm from mob behavior, where people do things they would never, ever dream of doing on their own. Okay, we've defined aggression, we've explored the theories, we've looked at the influences, and I know this can all feel a bit heavy, so let's pivot to the most important part of this whole discussion. What can we do about it? How do we take all this knowledge and actually put it into practice to build a safer, better world? First, we have to bust a huge myth, this idea of catharsis. You've heard it a million times, right? Just punch a pillow, get your anger out. The idea is that venting your aggression purges it from your system. But the research is incredibly clear on this. It's just not true. Acting aggressively, even on a pillow, tends to reinforce the aggressive behavior. It's more like practicing aggression, not releasing it. Expressing aggression usually just breeds more aggression. So if venting doesn't work, then what does? Well, a social learning approach gives us a roadmap. It tells us we need to do the exact opposite of practicing aggression. We need to actively teach and model non-aggressive ways to handle conflict. It means we have to build a culture that rewards cooperation and empathy. It means being mindful of the media we consume. And critically, it means training ourselves to just pause and engage our higher-level thinking to apply moral reasoning, especially when we're feeling frustrated. And I really want you to think about how all of this applies to your futures, because this is not just some abstract academic topic. Whether you go into healthcare, education, law, business, community leadership, you name it, understanding the roots of conflict and aggression is going to be an absolutely invaluable skill for de-escalating tense situations, for building better teams, and for creating safer environments for everyone. So as we wrap up not just this module, but our whole journey together, I want to leave you with a question to reflect on. Think about your own life, your community, your future career. How will you personally use what you've learned here to reduce harm and build cooperation around you? Because ultimately, that's what this is all about. It can be easy to feel helpless when you see conflict and violence in the world, but what you've gained in this course is power. It's the power of knowledge. And I want you to always remember this. Understanding is the very first, most essential step toward creating a less violent world for all of us. Thank you for an absolutely amazing semester.